Welcome to the final project video for CNIT 361, spring of 2019. For our final project, we'll be doing a choose your own adventure. Now, what is a choose your own adventure? For me, I like it when the students pick out their own topic, pick out their own project, something they will like, something they enjoy. You get to tailor most of the details for this project. You get to choose your topic, you get to choose what you're doing, and there's a wide range of variety of things you can do. Now, why do I do this? I've done this for several years right now, and this has been the best final projects I have done in my career of teaching here at University of Wisconsin Stout. The students get to pick out a topic. Hopefully that topic is something you're interested in, something you're excited about, something you want to learn more about. Then, because of that wanting to learn, these projects come out way better than me assigning you a topic. The learning that happens is dependent upon what the student wants to get out of this. There's many different topics, many different paths you can take, many different adventures you can take for this project. What do you want your adventure to be? Well, the possibilities are kind of unlimited here. It's something you want to do, something you have an interest in, something that you're excited about. I'm going to walk us through 5 different examples, different areas, different possibilities. If one of them excites you, that's great. If not, we're going to talk about choosing something completely different at the end, what your possibilities are. First possible adventure is doing this formal term paper and presentation. What's the paper about? You're going to pick out the topic. Don't like this concept of picking out your own topic, picking out this project, I will work with you. I will come up with a topic that you're excited about, that'll make a good project for you to do for this course. This topic about this paper, you're going to identify a concept or product here. You're going to do some research on it, figure out how it's being used, create a final paper, share your findings with a formal presentation in video form. Hopefully the whole time I'm going to have you relate it back to business, because that's one of the things that we try to do is get you to think, yes, you got this technology, but how does it relate back to our business objectives? If it doesn't relate back to our business objectives, it might not be a good decision for our company to do. That's what I'm going to try to make us think about in this paper is how does this relate back to our business objectives? For the paper, there's going to be 7 different sections for you to complete. These are the 7 sections. As you can see, some of them relate back to the business objectives, how the product is used, business management, licensing, pricing, competition in the future, and then a final recommendation. Even if your final recommendation is this product isn't any good, that's still good to know. Yes, you may have wasted a day or two in the business environment researching and doing this, but it's better to know that this particular product isn't going to work before you install it instead of after spending $1 million and in the software, training, and everything else that goes with it. Sometimes the answer is, no, we don't want this software, is a good answer. For paper length, I use total word count. About 3,750 words comes into about 20 pages, including your title page, table of contents, references. If you choose to do this, I'm going to post a little bit more information about this paper to break it down a little bit better for you. Like I said, the topic is your choice, as long as it can relate back to server somehow. Pretty much wide open. One thing I'm going to ask you to do is this needs to be new research. If you researched this for your company last year, you can't do that. If you're researching it for a current project for your company and you're doing the research right now, yes, you could definitely use that as your project for this course. With this being a formal paper and presentation, I expect the formal presentation you are up giving a presentation. You're in front of a board, you're in front of a projector with PowerPoint slides, you're presenting this to the classroom. Not this type of presentation where it's just a PowerPoint with a voice talking on it, but I want to see you actually do the presentation. Record it somehow, either on your cell phone, on a video camera, then we're going to post it to YouTube. For these projects, I have something that I call the check dates. Check dates are a date, regardless of the project you're doing, is you have some steps due on a certain day. Check date 1 for whatever project you're doing is all due on the same day. Check date 2, check date 3, 4, 5. They're all due on the same day regardless of the project you're doing. Check date 1 is typically that you picked out your topic. Check date 2 and 3, you're making progress on it. Check date 4, you have everything working and submitted. Check date 5 is the presentation of your video. At the end, I'll talk about the dates in a little bit more detail as we are going. Possible adventure number 2 is passing the correct Microsoft certification exam for this course. The correct certification exam for this course is 410, Installing and Configuring Windows Server 2012. I'll also let you take the 2016 equivalent of this or the 2019 equivalent of this exam. It is up to you. It has to be passed during the enrollment of the course. If you passed this 2 years ago, it does not count. It needs to be passed during the enrollment in this course. There is a cost for you. You have to pay this out of your own pocket. UW Stout doesn't provide vouchers. It doesn't provide any reimbursement for this. General public is about $165 to take an exam. University of Wisconsin Stout is a Microsoft IT Academy. Your price should be about $100. I don't know the exact number, but it's about $100. You do get a discount with that. You have to pass a certification exam to get full credit for the check date that counts the biggest part of your grade. And for this one, it's check date 5. For all the other ones, check date 4 is the important one, but for the certification exam, it is check date 5. When you pass the score, and say your passing score was 814, if you got 815 or if you got 1,000 out of it, you will get 100% for that portion of that. But if you fail your certification exam, you're going to get a prorated score. If you score a 549 out of a possible 1,000 points, you're going to get 54.9% for that portion of the score. Here are your check dates. Notice this one for the certification adventure. Check date 5 is your big day here. That's your big check date. That's for passing it. I give you the most time possible for that. The third possible adventure is a working Windows or Linux server. Server has to be at least 2012 R2, could be 2016, and now with the release of 2019 server, you could possibly use that as your server. More than the standard services. Now what do I mean by that? More than DNS, more than DHCP. You need to use something that a corporation would use. More advanced than the applications we work with in our MOAC labs. Typically it's a multiple server setup. You're going to use some sort of virtualization. I imagine most of you don't have multiple servers sitting around, so you're going to use some sort of virtualization. If you're using Microsoft, it'll be Hyper-V. You can use VMware and ESXi. Your server doesn't necessarily have to be Windows. It could be Linux. You could use Linux for setting up your corporate solutions. The advantages of Linux is they are typically open source, which means free, which also means support could be iffy at times. Linux in a virtualized environment on your desktop will perform typically better than Windows in a virtualized environment on your desktop. I have had a lot of students do Linux projects on their desktops at home, and they chose Linux because it would run much better on the hardware they had. The choice is up to you. You get to choose whatever you want to do. The important part of this is I want to see it working. I want to see that the project's working. You create your video about 5 minutes long and show me that it's working, doing what it needs to do. Database, you can show me that the indexes are working, tables are there, all of that stuff. That would be an example, but don't go more than 10 minutes. You should be able to demonstrate it in about 5 minutes. You need to create some documentation from the creation of your virtual machine all the way up to what you're demonstrating to me. That documentation should be enough for me to recreate what you're doing. And this documentation is not only for this project or this adventure, but for all the other adventures too. The catch, it needs to work. You can't necessarily work on this project and then say, oh, well, in theory, it should have worked if the installation would have went correctly. No, the idea of this project is to have it work. We work with our industry partners. We meet once a semester with them. They come and tell us what we can do to make you more hireable. And one of the things they say is, yes, we understand you're an educational environment, but they also need to understand that projects need to work. If they don't work, they don't get partial credit for them. This project I'm basing on that. That's where you need to have your projects working. Here are the check dates for that. And as you can see, the first one is a selection of your topic. Next couple are you're making progress. Third one is you got your documentation and setup done. And then fifth one is your video. The fourth possible venture is a PowerShell project. PowerShell to do something at a corporate level. This could be setting up DHCP with scopes, DNS, with putting records in, something at a corporate level. You could maybe even think about this, okay, we did all these labs throughout the semester, now how do I do it in PowerShell? Pick out a couple labs, recreate them in PowerShell, what you did in the labs, and that would work. Documentation, once again, from the beginning to what you're presenting. And the catch here again is it needs to work. Well, I don't want to hear if I use this command it should do this. No, I want to see it work. Here are the check dates. Once again, check date 1 is selecting your topic. 2 and 3 is you're making progress. 4 is you have your documentation and everything set up. 5 is your video. One of the advantages of PowerShell is that you can use the MOAC labs to do them. What that means is you don't need to have additional servers. You don't have to do the configuration of the servers. You can just use PowerShell. The MOAC labs are full installations of Microsoft Server. That means you have the entire PowerShell suite at your fingertips. You can do everything you should be able to do in PowerShell in our MOAC labs. This is a solution a lot of students seem to choose. The fifth possible adventure is the Internet of Things. So what is the Internet of Things? Here's the Wikipedia definition of what the Internet of Things is. Physical devices with embedded electronics and software and network connectivities that collect and share data. We're going to network everything up. Let's share the data. And then a lot of people also say, let's make some valuable decisions based upon that. What's a thing? We're talking the Internet of Things, but what is a thing? And here's a list of several different things that, as I've done research on Internet of Things, I found were interesting. Heart monitoring implants. Getting an implant in your chest that communicates with your doctor on a daily or hourly basis that monitors your heart. All of a sudden in the morning you get a phone call from the doctor that says, hey, last night you had an irregular heartbeat. Odds are you didn't notice it because you were sleeping, but you had an irregular heartbeat. Why don't you come in and let's just check it out to make sure there's nothing wrong. That is an example of Internet of Things. You have a sensor collecting data, uploading it to a central location. Now we're going to make some educated decisions based upon that. Here's a definition of things: inextricable mixture of hardware, software, data, and service. That's what we're getting to. We're getting to the idea of converged devices. Let's get all this stuff together. Let's get it all collecting data, get that data in one spot, and make our decisions. We're converging all of this together. What do you do for a project here? Create some sort of thing. Ideally, it'd be multiple things, but one thing works. Get them communicating. Get them looking at pulling in data, collecting data, and then being able to make a decision based upon that. Some examples I've had are students like to use the credit card sized computers, the Arduinos, the Raspberry Pis, put some sensors on them, make some programming changes, collect some data, and then let's give some feedback. Temperature sensors that connect into an Arduino that send out a email when the temperatures get too high. Raspberry Pi that sends soil moisture content that waters a plant when it gets too dry. All sorts of things we can do, and those are some examples of that. I've had students use a Raspberry Pi to collect data from their automobiles they're driving, RPM, miles per hour, all sorts of data like that. It's really kind of amazing where these projects can all go. Once again, documentation from basic parts and setup all the way to what you're presenting in the class. It has to work. That's once again is the key to this project. What's the catch? Part 2 is we don't have anything. The University of Wisconsin Stout, the college we belong to, my department, Communication and Technologies, we don't have any things for you to use. We don't have any fundings. You would need to acquire your own things. How much does this cost? Raspberry Pi costs about $50, maybe $60. By the time you get the Raspberry Pi, a memory card, the power supply, I highly recommend the case. That's for your Raspberry Pi. Then maybe some sensors to connect into that, which range from a couple dollars up to maybe $20 or $30, depending upon what you want to do. I've had some students that use this Raspberry Pi, and then after this, they turn it into something else that they've used around their house. I've also had students design a project, like I mentioned, the plant waterer. I've had them do flow meters on fish tanks to signify when they're not getting any water flowing through. All sorts of crazy things there. And they've actually left these projects up and running to help them provide a better life, watering their plants for those of us who just can't seem to grow a plant. The third catch here is it's typically a lot of programming. Raspberry Pi runs on Linux. Arduino has its version of Linux. Normally you have to get in and do some PHP, maybe some Python, maybe some database programming. Yes, there's an example on the website you're following, but you're probably going to have to tweak it. So it does typically involve a lot of programming. It needs to be a working example. And here are some example dates if you would choose to do the Internet of Things. For choosing your own adventure, you didn't see what you wanted to do. None of these really excited you. You want to do something else that you think is really cool to you. Maybe you have a project you're working on at work. Work with me. I'll help you go through and set up something that is a great project for this course. One thing I'm asking is it needs to happen now during our final project time. So it couldn't have happened 2 years ago or something like that. So it needs to happen now, and it needs to relate back to servers. You got to include the documentation from the start to what you're presenting. What's the catch? Needs to be working. If you haven't noticed, that's a theme in all of them. Here's an example of some check dates. If you pick out a project that we haven't talked about, you're going to be asked to come up with these check dates on your own. And they're all kind of similar. Everybody wants to know how they're going to be graded. Project is heavily based on check date 4. That is getting it working. That'll be worth 60% of your grade. The other check dates are worth 10% for everything except for the certification, where the certification, check date 5, is worth the 60%, and all the other check dates are worth 10%. Once again, turning in your passing score for the certification is the last date. So I give you as much time as possible for that. Now, these check dates, here are the dates they're actually due. They're spread out 1 or 2 weeks between them. Take us through the end of the semester. Gives us some time to work on them. I'll have a discussion board for check date 1, check dates 2 through 5. There'll be drop boxes. When you do check date 1, I'm going to ask you to make a post, and I will interact with you to give you my approval. Now, it's not necessarily to change your topic, but maybe it's to rely a little bit on my experience, maybe right size your project. Maybe you pick out something that has too big of a scope or too difficult for this course. I'll help you right size it into an acceptable final project. Maybe you pick out something that's a little too simple. Maybe I'll work with you on expanding it a little bit, once again turning it into a great project. The other thing that has happened quite a bit is I've had students that maybe have done a server setup and then used maybe like a Raspberry Pi. Set up a server to be your media server, and then the Raspberry Pi to be your client end for the video streamer. That is one example, combining these together. Whatever excites you, that's what I'm looking for. Don't wait till the last minute to do your check dates. I need to work with you to make sure they're right. I will try and check these at least once a day. For check dates that call for proof, a lot of check date 2 and check date 3 says Give me some sort of proof that you have your server set up, or you've ordered your parts, you've acquired your parts, something like that. It can be something as simple as a video or some pictures submitted into the Dropbox. It can be a receipt, it can be some preliminary documentation, just something to show you're making projects that's similar to the check dates I put into the sample projects. Check date 1, I'm calling a tentative commitment. I want you to post on a discussion board. The title of it is My Choose My Adventure Final Project Is. I want you to start a new thread. In the subject, put what the type of project is, followed by the subject. Example here is like a research paper, and then you're doing it on Active Directory. You're doing a server project on DHCP. And then in the comment area, I want you to write a short little description, and then how you intend to meet your 5 check dates. Get this done as soon as possible, so that way we can work with you and get you into a right project for you to complete this semester. This concludes the introduction to our Choose Our Adventure final project for this course. If you have any questions, let me know. I encourage you to work on this ahead of time, work forward on this, complete this early, get this project done, then we don't have to worry about it. Thank you very much.